So, und herzlich willkommen hier zurück zu unserem Webinar zu Life is Science, der European Researchers Night. Wir starten nun mit einem englischsprachigen Beitrag, weshalb ich selbst es auch wieder zu Englisch switchen werde. So, you might know that actually there is an incredible high number of scientific publications available, and sometimes it's not difficult to find the right information, or at least not the information you're looking for. So it's great if you can have a little help, maybe in the form of open knowledge maps. OpenKnowledgeMaps.org provides a visual interface to the scientific knowledge of the world. And we have an expert here who can tell us more about how it works and how we can use it for our work and our everyday life. So let's welcome Michela Vignoli. The floor is yours.
Thanks a lot. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Michela Vignoli and I'm Community Coordinator at Open Knowledge Maps. The goal of this presentation is to introduce to you the tool Open Knowledge Maps. And first of all, I want to discuss some issues that we presently have when we are trying to discover research content online. And in the end, I also would like to have a brief discussion with you to discuss maybe your issues that you are having, your experiences, and also gather some feedback how we could improve our services. So let's dive right in. I will start now. Right now, we can say that we are in a discoverability crisis. When we try to search for research topics online specifically, we realize that we are really much like this person here in the picture. We are swamped with literature. Every year, 2.5 to 3 million papers are published. And this makes it very hard to get an overview of a specific research field or research topic. And once you have gained this overview, to keep it. This is, of course, already a challenge for researchers themselves. But if you think of people outside academia, and maybe many of you are actually outside of academia, this gets even harder. So think, for instance, of journalists or fact checkers. I mean, they have more difficulty to get access first to scientific content, and the ways that are right now provided also don't ease this very much for them. The current pandemic situation actually is a very good and timely example for this dilemma. It's a topic of utmost importance, not only for science and medicine, but also for society as a whole. Yet, gaining an overview of the topic and isolating leading and relevant information is a really challenging task. This picture that is, I think, a very vivid visualization of this big wave of publications, as you have already mentioned. It was taken from a science magazine publication that was published in May this year. And they estimated that the COVID-19 literature that was produced between January and May was around 23,000 papers. And right now, a newer estimation is that we already have more than 100,000 papers just on this topic. So we see that this is one of the biggest explosions of scientific literature ever. Given that volume, also researchers, of course, have the difficulties to dive into the topic and to see what the added values are, what the bottom line of all these papers is, and what the limitations are. And this, of course, is a very big challenge. So when we try to search for such a topic online, for instance, now let's take COVID-19 as an example, a way that you can go about is to go to your favorite search engine. Here in this example, we will use Google Scholar. We enter the term COVID-19 in the search bar, and then we get the search results. As you see here, we get hundreds of thousands, and sometimes it's even millions of results. And of course, this number of papers, it's impossible that a single person or even a team can read all through that. So what researchers usually do is that they take a highly cited paper, for instance, the first one here in the list, and then they read through it, they work through it, they look what literature those authors have used to produce the paper, and they look at the references and basically start from there. and then continue reading the papers like that. As you can imagine, this is a very time-consuming task. So it takes quite a while until you have gone through all these publications and have created a mental model of the research topic that you want to have. Indeed, this process in most PhD studies takes about a year. As we can see here now, of course, COVID-19 is a very complex topic, which makes this problem even more complicated. But what you can see here in this simple example with this simple search that we have done, we at the moment don't have a lot of tools that really help us to make this search more efficient. There has not been a lot of innovation when it comes to discovery systems, indeed. And this makes it even harder to get an overview of the field, and once you have it, to keep it. We can also see this in this data. We have a very high uncitedness of publications. Depending from research field, this fluctuates between 7% and 63% of papers. So 63% of papers not being cited is a very high number. And when we look at the research data, it's even worse. There we have 85% of data that is not being cited at all. The worst problem probably is the transfer to practice, actually. So in a very application-oriented discipline like medicine, only 14% of the research results are really being transferred to practice. And also this takes a very long time. So given this situation, this is when the team of Open Knowledge Map decided that it's time to change the way we discover research. We wanted to provide a missing link between the accessibility and discoverability of scientific knowledge. Before I explain to you how this works, I briefly want to introduce who we are. Open Knowledge Maps is a charitable nonprofit dedicated to revolutionizing discovery of scientific knowledge, not only for science, but for all stakeholders in society. We provide a visual interface that dramatically increases the visibility of research findings. What we do differently than, for example, the other example that I showed you earlier, we use knowledge maps instead of lists. So when you type in a search term, in this example, you see heart diseases, you can see relevant subtopics at a glance. The subtopics are displayed in bubbles. So here we see risk factors, types of diseases, and prevention. And within these bubbles, you have already grouped the papers which are dealing with these subtopics. So you have relevant resources already grouped around the subtopics, and you can directly dive in. An additional feature is basically that the closeness of the bubbles also shows how related those subtopics are. For example, here we see the types of diseases and prevention are more closely related than risk factors and prevention. Our mission is to create a visual interface to scientific knowledge that is accessible and affordable for all stakeholders. We do not only want to do this for a single domain, region, or discipline, but for all of science and research. We want to do this in the most open way possible and create an inclusive, sustainable, and equitable infrastructure. As a charitable nonprofit, we want to enable everyone to benefit from scientific knowledge, independent of their age, geography, or stakeholder group. To do all of that, we propose to fund Open Knowledge Maps in a collective effort. Organizations are kindly invited to become supporting members and to co-create the platform with us. So right now, I want to show you a live demo of Open Knowledge Maps. Just a second, I need to find the right window. Here. So if you go to the browser and enter openknowledgemaps.org, you can basically create a knowledge map of your own. Here in the search interface, you can see that you can choose between two data providers. One is PubMed, the large life sciences, bioscientific research research paper data set. And the other one is BASE, the Bielefeld Academic Search Engine, which currently lists, I think, more than 250 million papers. To enter the search term, you can just type it in. I have already done this before. So if you put in digital education as an example and click on Go, Open Knowledge Maps creates a knowledge map for you. As you see, the map that is generated is very similar to the example that I showed you earlier. So here of the term digital education, you see all the publications, well, 100 of the most relevant publications that are listed here, and they are already grouped in these subtopics. For instance, digital competence, digital teaching, digital education revolution, digital storytelling, and so on. To look into the bubbles, you can hover over them and just click into it. And then you can basically hover over the papers and look which publications you have here. To go again to the overview of the bubble, you just, of all the bubbles, you click in the empty space between them. Now I choose this bubble here, Rethinking Digital Literacy. And basically also by clicking on one of these papers, you can see on the right side here in the browser that you get all the information, the title, the citation, and the abstract is already displayed. You can also filter the publications that are displayed here. For instance, you can filter only open access publications. By the way, the open access publications you also see highlighted here with this symbol. Open access means basically that you can access the paper and read the full paper without paying anything for it. So this is actually a full access for everyone. And you can also sort search results by relevance, by title, by authors, and by year. So since this bubble has quite a lot of research results, I want to narrow this down. I will, oh, just a second, now my window changed. Good, so I will put in digital identity. And here I can see that there are still 2 papers with this keyword in them. Now I will choose that particular paper here, click on it. Again, I see the abstract here. And one of the cool features that we have is that you can also, if it's an open access paper, display directly in the, either through clicking here or below here, directly display the preview of the PDF within the tool directly. So if you now imagine that you are a researcher and want to work together with your colleagues, you might want to already work directly here in the document, make some notes that your colleagues can then see again in their display. And to enable that, we have integrated a hypothesis into the interface. By clicking on this arrow, you can open hypothesis. Once you're logged in, you see now that there are no annotations right now. But when you're logged in hypothesis, you can, for instance, here mark in the text, either just highlight it or make an annotation. I just make this now as an example. You can post it to the public. And then you see that this is available for everyone that then accesses this preview of the paper again. Right. So now I will just briefly erase the search and go again to the overview of the map. Another feature that we have implemented is that you can share the maps that you have generated. You can do this here on the left side. You can post it directly to Twitter, to Facebook, or via email. And you can also get an embedding code to put it on your website or on your dashboard. Finally, every map that you create is also citable, so you get a link, and on the bottom here you also get a citation that you can just copy and paste wherever you need it. Right, so So just check if I have not forgotten anything that I wanted to show you. Looks good. Then I will go back to the presentation. To summarize, the advantages from open knowledge maps that we see is first that you can get a bird's eye view on a specific field, as you see here in this picture. So, for instance, heart diseases, as you saw in the previous example, you then see all the bubbles with the subtopics grouped, and you get immediately an idea what this topic is about, especially right now in the most current publications. It also helps you to identify relevant concepts through these bubbles and the keywords that you see there. Sometimes indeed finding the right terminology is what takes longest in literature research. If you didn't know, for instance, that digital identity was a relevant topic in digital education, well, you know it now. Open knowledge maps also helps you to sort the relevant from the irrelevant with respect to your information need, of course. If you are only interested, let's say, in digital literacy, you can first stay within that bubble and branch out only later. And finally, while open knowledge maps is an interface for all scientific knowledge, it will always make it very easy to identify and access open content. Of course, you can also access paid content or literature that you need to pay for it, but it's also important for us to highlight really which content can be accessed for free. Here is how it works in a nutshell. Open Knowledge Maps creates the maps based on the 100 most relevant documents for your search term. Relevancy is defined by the two search engines that are used, and basically this means subject similarity between the search term that you have entered and the metadata or the information of the documents. Open Knowledge Maps then uses text similarity between the metadata of these 100 documents to create the map. The algorithm groups those papers together that have more words in common, and this is how the bubbles are created then. Open Knowledge Maps wants to go the whole way of open science and create a public good. All services are free and open. The source code is open source, and all content is licensed in CC BY, the Creative Commons license, which basically means that you can reuse everything as long as you acknowledge that it's from Open Knowledge Maps. Our offering includes innovative search and discovery services. You have already seen the integration of Bayes and PubMed in the demo before, but we also offer a tool that enables you to visually explore the outcomes of research projects. It is called Viper, and it is based on OpenAIRE datasets. OpenAIRE is an EU-funded open science platform. We also have a wide range of training activities, events and talks, such as this one, that you are currently attending. They are held all over the world, and right now, of course, a lot of them are held remotely. The training materials that we use, we offer them also for all other people who want to spread the word about open knowledge maps. They are open and can be downloaded from the Open Knowledge Maps website, along with speaker notes and how-tos. Our software, which was awarded the Open Minds Award, is also open source. It's available on GitHub and under the MIT license. We also run community support and engagement programs. The most prominent is our Enthusiasts program, where we support Open Knowledge Maps ambassadors and power users from all around the world if they are willing to do workshops and other events with their own communities. And in turn, they provide us valuable feedback from the point of view of their community, which helps us a great deal to improve our services, that they are really best usable for the people who really need them. Since its inception in May 2016, Open Knowledge Maps has developed to be the largest visual search engine for research. It has created a lot of enthusiasm in the community. We had, since 2016, 4 million page views, even more than 4 million page views, and more than 250,000 maps were created. Many workshops were held around the world, with more than 3,000 participants in total. Also earlier this year, Open Knowledge Maps was awarded with the Austrian Prize for Free Knowledge. The team is also an international team. The core team actually is based in Vienna. But we have contributors and volunteers from all around the world. Open Knowledge Maps started as a pure volunteer project, and it's only since 2018 that some of the work is funded. The team consists of 9 people and Know-Center, Austria's Research Center for Big Data, as an organizational member. Since all of our services are free and open, and to guarantee that we can do this in a sustainable way, we need supporting members. The ones listed here are the first of hopefully many institutions that will come on board and support Open Knowledge Maps with an annual fee. In return, the supporting members are invited to co-create the platform with us. The members receive 1/3 of the vote as to which features and data sources are implemented on Open Knowledge Maps. The other 2/3 are split between the wider community, which gets also 1/3 of the vote, and the final third of the vote goes to the Open Knowledge Maps team. The work that we do is guided by an international and interdisciplinary advisory board. Members include Natalia Manola. She's the project director of Open Air, Europe's open access infrastructure, and Claudia Jarrat. She's executive director of Wikimedia Austria. Open Knowledge Maps also partners with important initiatives in the open science and open knowledge space, including, for example, our Open Sci, Impact Story, Refigure, and the Internet Archive Labs. Finally, as I've already mentioned, we have started the Enthusiasts program, and this is very important for us to increase the co-creation aspect of Open Knowledge Maps. The enthusiasts are all voluntary power users and ambassadors from all over the world. They spread the word at local events or also online events and workshops, and they provide us valuable input and feedback. The enthusiasts play a very important role in shaping Open Knowledge Maps, and we are very lucky to have them. This was my brief introduction to Open Knowledge Maps. Right now, I would like to open the discussion. I have prepared 2 questions for you just to get started. One is that we'd be interested in if you search for research papers online, and if so, which tools that you are using. And then also we would like to know if Open Knowledge Maps would help you to overcome the challenges that you experience maybe with literature search and discovery that we have discussed earlier.
Thank you very much. Maybe as a message to the audience, if you want to participate actively in the discussion, you can just raise your hand and I will unmute you so that you can speak. Otherwise, you can also tell us more about those 2 points or what you think, or maybe questions you have in the chat, and I will read them. So let's see. At the moment, people are still thinking about their question, and maybe I have 1 or 2 questions for you in the meanwhile.
Sure.
So, you showed us about that the most relevant papers are shown. How do you ensure that those papers which are shown are really the most relevant ones?
So for determining the most relevant papers, we actually take the relevance from the data providers. So depending on your choice, it's either from the PubMed API or the Bayes API. Both of them mainly use text similarity between the search term that you entered and the article metadata to determine the relevance. So PubMed uses a combined logic and machine learning, two-stage ranking, and Bayes uses logic and information retrieval-based ranking.
So is it based on the number of citations or the number of downloads of the relevant paper, or how many times people looked at it?
No, actually, it's really the similarity between the word that you have entered and the information, so the metadata of the papers that is entered. So it's really a text-based relevance here.
Okay, thank you. I have another question. So if you tell us about the knowledge maps and how important it is to be able to use it to better find scientific data, how can you ensure the quality of the research that is being included?
Also here, we rely on the trusted data providers that we have implemented, Bayes, PubMed, but also for the wider project OpenAir. These providers carefully review the data that they enter there, and they make sure that they only include academic and also verified content there. Of course, it can always happen that mistakes occur, but I mean, of course, if someone spots an error, we are always happy to take this feedback and also to forward this to our data providers, because they are also in turn very happy if we help them to improve their data sets. But in general, it's really well curated data that we get from those those three data providers. And from our experience, yeah, it's a really high quality data.
Thank you. You mentioned now that the feedback is vital, and you also mentioned enthusiasts before, people that help you develop it further. You are community manager, so how is the community involved in developing open knowledge maps?
So we have various ways to collect the feedback and input. As I already mentioned, all the workshops and demos that we ourselves do are an important tool, but also those that are done by the enthusiasts. For the enthusiasts, actually, this year we had the third iteration of this program, and there is basically a call on our website that is always open. We do one iteration per year, and usually we have like 3 to 5 people who are doing this with us. And every year we have several calls where we discuss the strategy. Usually the enthusiasts already have their own ideas how they want to spread the word about open knowledge within their own communities. So sometimes they are working in libraries, and there they do this for the students. In other occasions, it's researchers who want to give this knowledge to their colleagues. And usually they make local workshops, face-to-face workshops, where they basically teach the other people how to use the tool, and then they collect also their feedback while they're really trying out the tool. And this also helps us, of course, then improve the functionality so that it meets the actual needs of people who need it. What is really important for us is that we get very broad feedback. So not only from researchers, for example, but also from people that are working in other areas. I already mentioned libraries. Of course, also people from the general public, for instance, journalists, would be very interesting to hear what their experiences are with this tool, if this helps them to dive into a specific topic, or yeah, if they see any room for improvement there. And of course, we also want to have this feedback worldwide. Right now, it's working very well because we have really from several regions, from South America to Africa to North America. So we have a lot of enthusiasts and also other users who are giving us great feedback here. So yeah.
Thanks. So if I or any of the audience would like to help you, how could we best contribute? Whom should we contact?
So there are a number of ways. Of course, you can also introduce open knowledge maps to others. We have a workshop kit that is available on our website. You can find there a lot of training materials with great notes that help you dive very quickly into the topic. And as always, you can, of course, also contact me. My contact address is also on the website, and I'm happy to support you there as well. Of course, if you wanted to take a step even further, you can also become an enthusiast. We are looking still for people for the next year's iteration. So as I already said, this means that we have a few calls during the year, and that you can then organize your own event. Then, of course, you can also support us with a donation, for instance. We also have this linked on the website. And yeah, finally, of course, for us, it's also important to have the institutional support from the supporting members. This is less, well, it's also community feedback, but this is even a step further. This is when institutions really also support us, not only from the feedback from the content, but also financially.
I understand. And we have already also received other questions I would like to pose. Mm-hmm. So Barbara said, I'm a researcher and search for research papers quite often. I can imagine a visualization tool for literature would be a great help. I have two questions. I will now pose the first one. You mentioned that you can see a PDF preview in your tool. Does it also allow to see the whole PDF? And is there a possibility to download it?
Yes, you can definitely see in the preview the whole PDF. Also for the annotation tool, this is of course very important that you can make the annotations throughout the text. And you can also download it. I think that the download link that we provide, it's not that it's directly downloading it from our site, but you basically can click on the link and then go to the site where you can download it from there. So it's definitely possible.
Okay, thank you. And the second question was, could you imagine, or do you intend to finally make it possible not to search only in metadata, but also in the full text for similarities?
Basically, this would be possible. I mean, I'm not a technical person in the team, so I hope that I answer your question really correctly. But from what I've understood is that the restrictions are basically given from the data providers. So basically the data that we get from the data providers, the relevancy, it's just taken from the metadata. We at Open Knowledge Maps, we also use the abstract text to make the group of the bubbles, but to expand this to the whole text would mean a lot of more, well, it's a more complicated technical procedure that we currently cannot do. So it's not really scalable right now. And as far as I remember from the discussions I had with our technical people, this has also to do with the problem that we do not have a known index right now, which would also be a very cumbersome task to do. And it's plan of our roadmap to do that. But right now we don't have really the means to do it, and we're still seeking for funding for it. So I think short answer would be, technically, I think it would be possible, but at the moment we cannot do this.
Okay, thank you. And Barbara, in case your question is not fully answered, please just write me in the chat. Also to all the others, if you write something in the chat, I can post the question for you, or you can question Michaela directly. I will just unmute you if you raise your hand. So, Barbara just wrote, perfect, thank you.
Wonderful.
So, as far as I understood, Open Knowledge Maps is still in a beta version. So do you already have a time plan or a schedule? Do you know when it will be fully operable?
I'm actually not really sure if we really have a time schedule there, but we have a roadmap that is available on our website. I think that this really depends also how much funding we will get in the next years and how quickly we can proceed to really move to a full version. I don't think that we really have a time frame for that right now.
Have you considered using ads to generate income, or maybe to also have a premium version which would not be for free but would cost something, or would that not fit into your charitable organization and your goal?
So for the users, actually, we want to keep it completely free. But for the member organizations, maybe I can, I think I have a slide where we see the overview of the membership-based funding model, which I've already talked about. So here we see that we indeed have 3 membership categories. So the most convenient one is for the supporting member. They get 1 seat on the board of supporters and are listed on our website. This starts with 2,800 euros per year. So this is really for institutional members, I should say, not for individuals. Then we have sustaining members, which gets 2 seats on the board of supporters. And next to the listing on the website, they are also listed in selected materials with their logo. This is for 4,800 per year. And finally, we have the sustaining member plus, which gets 3 seats on the board of supporters. Also the listing on website and materials. And this starts with 9,800 euros per year. So this is basically our funding scheme that we have. Next to that, we are also in a few research projects. But actually, to bring our roadmap forward, it is really important to have the membership sustaining members. Well, also the membership members, the membership funding, sorry. Because for research projects, I mean, it's very cool to be in research projects, it's very important, but to really bring forward the core development of the services, it's important to have the own budget for that. And for this, our members, our sustaining members are very important.
Okay, thank you. I mentioned earlier in previous sessions that you also have a lot of pupils or maybe students attending these sessions. And one question I might have is, what about your own career? How did you end up being a community manager? What did you study, and what advice could you give everyone who might be interested in doing the same?
So actually, I studied something completely different. I studied Celtic studies at the Vienna University, which was very cool. So a purely humanistic, I would say, study. But then when I started looking for a job, I ended up at the Technical Research Institute. And basically there I started with project management. But in this job, also I had the opportunity to get started on research about open science, which was at the time a quite new thing. So basically there I got really interested in how is it possible, how can we support this shift to open up the whole science landscape, the science workflows that we have, because I realized that, of course, a lot of things are moving online now, and it's great that you can also make all the research knowledge available, not only within the institutes or also internationally between the research communities, but also with the general public. And this, I think, was the start for me to go much more in this direction. Well, I started as a researcher there in this area, did a lot also of a bit of policy research there. And yeah, in the end, I basically knew Peter Kraker, who is the founder basically of Open Knowledge Maps, since the beginning. And I always found that this is a very cool project, and that it deserves a lot of attention, because it really provides a great service, not only for researchers, but also it helps people outside research to get access to these contents in a quite straightforward way. And yeah, this is basically the background, how I came into this position.
That's really a fascinating story, really, from studying the past, Celtic studies, into the future of open knowledge maps.
Yes, of course. Coming from this research, and I also did a lot of how to say theoretical research at the time. So for me, it was very also a very important thing. How can you improve your search for literature and so on, right? So this was then for me a very good connection then, because also at the time when I studied, it was still very normal to go to the library to look for literature and read through books and through, I don't know, anthologies, whatever. And now I think much more of this work happens really in front of the computer, because it's a lot easier, I think. You can access more content basically, and in less time basically. But still, I think it's very important to improve the ways how we can do this.
Okay, thank you. And maybe also a last question from my side. Community manager is not an everyday job like firefighter, or not maybe a dream job like an astronaut that a lot of children want to be. And maybe not everyone knows what a community manager really does. So could you give us a little bit of an insight what you do in your daily work?
Yeah, so basically, I am in touch with the community of open knowledge maps. Right now, it's mostly the enthusiasts, actually. So those people who contact us, who want to spread the word about open knowledge maps, I basically go back to them and support them the best as I can. I basically introduced them to the material that we have. Well, I joined the team actually when there was already a lot of material available, so I didn't have to prepare this material. I just, tell other people about it. But I also helped to develop this material further, also from the feedback that I get from the enthusiasts, that basically if they have some feedback how we can improve this, then this is also something that I do. And the other thing, of course, is the social media stuff. I'm just starting now to take over this task as well, but being in the social media, Twitter and Facebook, this is a very important way to directly get in touch with the community, and this is also a very important pillar of what I do as a community manager.
Thank you. We have another question from a researcher. Do you have any experience if journalists are already using your platform? And I always imagine it to be difficult for non-researchers to really dive into original data, and your platform really make that easier. So do you have any experience with non-scientists?
Yeah,
journalists?
So non-scientists definitively. So we had workshops that were done with kids, for instance, and they actually it was difficult because it was done in a German-speaking country, this workshop. And most of the resources that are that you can find with open knowledge maps are actually in English. So actually, their only problem that they had with this interface, and it was not really an interface problem, but it was really a language problem. So for them, it was difficult because I didn't really understand what they found. But for the usability, actually for them, they understood it basically straight ahead, what there is to do. Probably it's also because the search interface is very similar to Google, and most people are, I think, very used to using Google and similar search engines. So this is, I think, something that eases the search. In terms of journalists specifically, I'm not really, so I personally do not have heard of any journalist that has used it, but I can imagine that it could also help them for their work. Still, it would be nice to have this confirmed from someone from this community, or yeah, if they have any feedback for their specific way how they search for information that we maybe don't know about, how we could improve the tool for that. This would be very interesting for us.
Okay, I hope that we could help to make open knowledge maps a little bit more known, at least throughout our audience. Now it's time to move on to the next topic. Thank you very much for your nice presentation and the discussion afterwards. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for having me. Bye.